Hey friends, this is Jeff. This is a recording of our second Saturday workshop from June. 20 or so of us discussed how 3s, 6s, and 9s connect with the world and with others. Stellar conversation here. I'm learning a lot from these. We're going to be concluding this series on this Saturday, July 11th. This is online. We would love to have you. This is going to be Saturday morning. Sign up for a membership at aroundthecircle.org. The links to the second Saturday conversation are in the show notes. And I hope you have a great weekend. I want to talk about how we connect. We're talking about 3s, 6s, and 9s in relationship for the most part. I want to recast something that got hit last time just to get us in the groove again. 3s, 6s, and 9s, we're going to pivot to 3s, 6s, and 9s for the rest of the time. You'll notice because 3s, 6s, and 9s are trying to meet their underlying feeling both internally and externally, what commonly happens is 3s, 6s, and 9s will try and create atmospheres for others. 9s are, I think, the easiest to see here. 9s will seek to create spaces of calm, of peace, of understanding. What is taking place in fashioning those spaces is not only is the 9 connecting with you and with me and the rest of us, the 9 is fashioning a space where they too can experience calm and peace and understanding. So in fashioning the space, their motive is being realized both externally and internally. 3s, you can see this with. 3s end up oftentimes being fantastic cheerleaders for the rest of us in terms of elevating our successes. This is what you do amazing. They are creating an atmosphere where that is normalized, celebration is normalized, but in so doing, they're creating and fashioning a space where they too can be celebrated, where it's normal for feedback to be given, where that sense of value for themselves can be actualized. And again, in terms of how they're connecting with others, that's a place where the 3 can commonly connect with others, is in presenting them with the gold star, the trophy, the words of affirmation, etc. For the 6, who are wrestling with anxiety within and wrestling with anxiety without, if it's the case that they can create spaces that are safe for others, they too will experience the safety for themselves. But that's a relational strategy. That becomes a relational strategy. The 6 can commonly connect with those most who likewise see the places that they're concerned. The 6 can connect with those who give validation to the anxieties that they have, meet them in those spaces. But 6s also often, and you'll see this vocationally a lot, 6s will take on those vocations in which they're elevating, here are the 5 things that may go wrong. Let's make sure that we shore these up. They're going to have superpowers on that front. But in ensuring that other people are safe, they themselves will likewise find that they are safe. So in all these places, here's the kicker. 9s who are body types are seeking spaces that have that intuitive balance, peace, shalom. For 3s who are heart types, creating those spaces where there's bonding through that sense of accomplishment and we are winning together. That's the space that's getting fashioned by their energy. And so to the 6 who desire certainty and want to feel safe, fashioning those spaces for themselves and others, that's going to be how they connect in the world. That's my take on it. I like the idea of creating spaces for these types. There's probably a handful of other things that can be said, but that's the big idea. Any thoughts on the big idea? And then we'll jump into specific types.
I have a kind of do a little setup as well.
Yeah, you want to build on that?
Yeah. So if you open that website I sent and you scroll down to the 369 section of that website, this is the last paragraph where he talks about if you're a 3, 6, or 9, what do you need to learn, right? And he talks about the big idea is that we have to learn to allow in emotional discomfort. And I smile because I am not good at that. So my mother, I think you've all heard me talk about this. My mother calls this my cut and run instinct. And I think it's probably in some way will be similar for 3, 6, and 9. So because I'm an attachment type, when I all of a sudden don't want to attach anymore or decide that this is not something I want to attach anymore, guess what the opposite of attachment is? Is it detachment?
Detachments, right?
Thank you. It's detachment. So even more than attachment, I actually see detachment in myself. So here's my, you guys know I always ask a question to set this up. 4, 3, 6, and 9, I imagine what causes that emotional discomfort is going to be very different. Threes are going to be or threes are going to experience discomfort over something different than what like a not what would cause a 9 discomfort versus a 6, right? So my question is for 3, 6, and 9, what do you think it is that causes you that discomfort that makes you go, ugh? And my part B of that question is, do you relate to that sign of cut and run? I imagine my processing speed is a part of that. Like, I have never known Jace to just come home and like make a giant decision about how he's like, I don't need like quitting his job or whatever, right? Um, but do you experience that nines, like that sort of like, I have to get out of here. Like this isn't, I have to leave, right? This isn't comfortable. So those are my two questions. What makes you feel that emotional discomfort? And what does that cut and run thing kind of look for you? How would you change that? Um, do those two questions make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
For me, intrusion is the word that comes to mind as a nine. Like intruding on my space. Like I really hate it if somebody, I might really like them, but I've just settled down to have some peaceful, quiet reading time, and bam, they've come to visit. Or on another level, intrusion, getting into a heavy discussion of politics that I think is A, dumb, and B, I don't want to be a part of, but they're in my
Sure.
space. So I'm either out the door finding something I have to do out and outside, or if that's not possible, I'm completely someplace else in my head.
So that's, you don't have to physically leave.
I
You can
don't
just
have
leave in
to.
your own.
Yeah.
Detachment into headspace, we could probably
Mm.
talk about quite a bit with nines.
I'm not really good at putting up the boundary and saying, you know what? I just had this real nice quiet time set up for myself, and I'd really like to just keep it. That seems like an impossibility.
Yeah, sure.
I would say when someone tells me I have to do something, oh, so my physical face is not going to go, oh,
Yeah.
but um, I feel my whole body react like, and it's so uncomfortable, and oftentimes it's in a circumstance where I'm face to face. And so I can't, like, I don't have words. Like, I totally almost shut down inside. Like, and I come up with something that will, like, I'll get back to you on that. Or, like, if it's something where I'm in a circumstance as leadership where someone's asking, like, all of a sudden now I'm the leader of all this and I need to do this thing. And, or, so when someone tells me, which I guess is sort of like intrusion as well, Susan, like they're intruding on me. I'm walking the dog and I need to do something because some neighbor did something, or, like, oh, anyway. So yeah, that was something that came to me as pushing to, like, there's other solutions here and I'm not the person who has to take care of it. So that's just an answer to that one.
That's great. I heard a lot of body type response in both of those, right? I love the word intrusion because that directly ties to agency for me. I don't know if you all would tie what you were saying to your agency. To me, when you were talking, it sounded like what makes me uncomfortable is someone taking my agency away from me, right? But I'm a 9, so I struggle with saying that out loud. So then I have to do the cut and run maybe doesn't look like literally running away, but you can't make me, participate in this conversation or whatever, right? Yeah.
Additionally, I'll say that being dismissed, you know, is will cause me to cut and run. I love the way that's a great description, I think.
Thank you to my
Um,
mother.
So, and most of the time I will just withdraw, and deal with it on my own in whatever way I choose or happens to me until it doesn't. There will come a time when that dismissal makes me actually act against it. And I have not yet been able to determine which dismissals cause action and which dismissals cause withdrawal.
I got
So
thoughts.
that's where I am. You have thoughts on that?
I
So,
do.
I was gonna say if
okay.
it relates to anger, then it'll cause motion one way or
Well,
the other
true.
for me.
Yeah.
What I was going to say about agency and dismissal is that they're kind of, the way I see it is they're kind of two sides of the same coin, right? They're if or and Teresa, what you said about being dismissed, it's someone saying you don't have agency, right? It's your agency doesn't matter. It's kind of the same thing, Katie, as agency. It's the thing that matters, I guess, is what I was hearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
Joe,
other
you
thoughts?
started to speak at one point. Did you have any thoughts about that?
I was going to say where the cut and run resonates to me, and I mean I think it can show up in smaller ways still, but when I was younger and in unhealthier places, there would be something needed to be done where there was a lot of work to do it, and there was a possibility of success or failure, and I would look at it and say, well, that would be a lot of work for the success, and I don't
Sure.
want all that. I don't want all that pressure, having the fear of the failure. So, let me just cut to the chase and fail right away and give up on the whole thing right off the bat and withdraw, and then I'm done. Like I've cut and run.
Yeah.
Well, can I bring something up about a 3? And this just happened last week where I was in a public setting, sitting with friends. We were doing something, and another person came up, engaged me, and said, "You are too loud. You're bothering me. I'm trying to concentrate." My first reaction was not to engage, which really bugged me later on because I could think of all these things I wanted to say to her. But my first reaction was to connect with the others to like help them validate what this person was saying instead of validating it myself, saying, she's this crazy lady that, you know, mine was, am I too loud? Is I wanted them to confirm that I was okay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then be able to say, she doesn't matter. You guys matter. Tell me that I'm okay. So it was like disengaging from her, but also engaging with this group to kind of give me authentic, like confirm that I'm okay.
Sure. I
We
see
t-
that as our six-ish way of thinking, right? Because we're connected to six that way. And like, well, I don't know. And, shame lets you not view yourself well. I don't know if I'm too loud or not. Let me go talk to every single other person in this room. I do that all the time. I do that all the time. Yeah, I agree, Ingrid.
what I'm hearing there is actually the opposite. And this is actually where I thought we were going to start, but jumping to the negative is interesting to me. The 369s attach. They attach to the people who give them what they want. That's how the motive is going to work. It's not just fashioning the spaces for other people to feel at peace,
Mm,
successful, and safe. But what I'm hearing there, Ingrid, is you are attached to a group of people who are going to give you affirmation in a moment where you have some self doubt. That's really important. It characterizes good relationships, and it characterizes likely what you're gaining from some of your relationships. The people, I would imagine this would be the case for threes, that commonly some of the closest relationships you have are people who are able to speak to you both with a measure of authenticity, but also with a vocabulary that elevates your sense of self, and that they do so routinely, and that's part of that would be a something that at least in my experience, the threes need from others in the world. I thought that your story illustrated that real well. Am I wrong in thinking that? You
I,
know what I'm saying there?
I mean, part of me was upset with myself because I wanted to be able to say, to be strong, to have a strong sense of who I was and to be able to, validate it without needing
Yes,
other people to do it.
sure.
I wanted, and Katie, you said, I do it all the time. Well, I do too. And it's like, I just want to be able to say internally, I'm good. I don't, it's nice. And somebody, as far as validation, I had somebody, I, I realized there was two types of validation. Like there's the one that says you're good, whereas another validation that was very specific on my good qualities instead of just a generic you're good. Like so yeah, I don't like that particular part of my Enneagram number. I want to be able to just sit in my worthiness without having other people qualify it or, you know. So I don't know, Katie might have a better response than I do, but
I think the reason I bring up the negative is because the positive of attachment just feels like normal life to me. Um, and the negative of attachment is where I see things fall apart for me. And so I'm just, maybe this is selfish, but I'm interested in how things fall apart for the other attachment numbers, because that's probably the thing we need to work on, right?
Maybe.
Positive attachment is, anyway, that I'm not going to restate that. So,
I'm also
sorry.
Actually,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
there's two footnotes I would love to characterize part of our conversation on this. Like this detachment, frustration, and expectant rejection are not negatives. It really is important on these fronts. Like sometimes our relationships don't work. And sometimes it's the healthiest, best move that three sixes and nines can make is to detach. There's nothing wrong with that. And it may be the case that somebody's detached from you and you feel that shock, that pain, that relational severing. Very different from like your shadow side is when
Sure.
we get into these elements of Enneagram. That would be one. Second, what I heard, Ingrid, was that a tendency side of things. I'm getting my statements of value from other people. That's half of my spectrum. Threes also are going to be able to self talk themselves and talk themselves up in terms of your own sense of value. And as you were talking, I heard that you spending that as a negative, and I would really want to push back on that. I don't necessarily think that that's a negative. I think, in fact, it's one of the attributes of threes that I really am envious of is the ability to speak into one's own life and really say, this is why I'm valuable, this is why I matter, this is why things are moving in the direction that I desire. Obviously, the shadow can be something like self-deceit, and so you got to be careful there. But that's the shadow. It's the shadow of something that's actually real and might actually be a huge value. Anything else on threes? What else can we say about threes and connecting? Do you have thoughts, Jillian?
I was just going to say, for me, the cut and run, which Suzanne has described before as taking our toys and going home,
Oh, yeah.
that I experience when I am being faced with failure and there's no other option but failure. So particularly if that is related to I've presented a plan, a goal, an idea, and that is naysayed, that's historically when I definitely cut and run, because I, right or wrong, see that there's a way forward. And if I'm coming up against other people who are saying, no, we're not going to do that, and so failure is now the only option ahead of me, I'm going to cut and run.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I will say what you were talking about, Jeff, the difference between a 1 and a 3, I often say, nobody's dead to me. And so in my head, it's not a severing of a relationship. It's just the activity. This is not working, and it has nothing to do with you, person over there. We can still be fine. Like, we can still be in relationship. I'm not necessarily mad at you. I'm just not going to put my success on the line to maintain this situation. And so, but I do see a bit of a wake in my past of things I have left with literally no concern, because it was just black and white to me that, well, we're not going to succeed. So we're just going to leave this all together now. And so I guess for me, it doesn't feel like I'm detaching from people. I'm detaching from the work, the things that I want to be doing.
Actually, I want to push into that. Actually, you brought up something I should have mentioned earlier. This triad is often called the pragmatists. And your language there in terms of like not fully severing relationships goes alongside that. People can be quite useful, even if things didn't work out in the past. You don't want to break those relationships because it might be the case that you need to re-engage that person. That seems to me really helpful. Secondarily, what I heard in terms of your sense of, is this project going to be successful? What I heard is it's the success or failure is going to be measured by these other people. It's not necessarily whether or not the thing is accomplished. It's whether they think it merits a high esteem, and that would be stated in a social environment. And if you're not going to get that, then you're going to detach. That may seem subtle, but that seems to me incredibly important nuance. So do you have thoughts on that, Jillian?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much entirely how I experience it. And it's very recent and raw a little bit. Just I'm leaving a teaching job primarily just for this reason, because I have presented a way forward over and over and over and over. And for whatever reason, maybe it can't be done. I'm not going to say that it's, ill will towards me or anything like that, but it's just very hard to walk in paths of perceived non-success. Like it feels like death to me, honestly. Failure. And when I learned the Enneagram, initially, when I very first learned it, I didn't quite identify with the word failure very readily. And now it's all I see everywhere. Whether it's in my relationships, whether it's me snapping at my kids, it always goes back to that every time. It is just failure, failure. That's it. And it feels so petty, but that really is what it is. I mean, if I think I'm failing in any way, shape, or form, I am immediately in a bad mood. And so I run from it like it's the plague. And so, I have to do some self-evaluation of like, what is an acceptable level of failure to walk in on a daily basis, because we have to. I mean, to be a person, there's going to be failures all around us all the time. So that's my work primarily in this season right now, is to but I see this pattern in my life of almost strong 3 pattern, 9 pattern, like low 9 of that stress move of, then I'm just like, as Suzanne presented it, take my toys and go home, and I'm just not going to do anything for a while. And so it's very much a cycle that I see in my life that, again, I don't know if it's something that a cycle that needs to be broken. But when you talked about cut and run, I thought, well, yes, that is definitely a pattern that recurs over and over and over for me.
Jillian, how old are your kids?
They are now almost 13 and 14.
Perfect.
Do you ever feel when you're in a situation that you can't get out of, that's so-called feeling, that you reframe it and find a way to show it as a success or a portion of a success?
100%. And as you, Ingrid, said, I look for people to try and validate any measure of success that can be found in what this massive failure is. Definitely.
I miss that, because that would be important. You look in terms of connecting with others on the opposite front, you're looking for anything that you might validate, and that's a place of connection, correct?
Absolutely. Like if somebody will come along and say, "Oh, but this really did do well. You were right about this." Or even if this went bad, but you're still a good person.
Yeah.
That's what as I'm also self-pres. And so that really is the highest value to me, is hearing, that you are still good. Like what
Yes.
you are doing, what you are putting out in the world still has value and still is good. And I also, Ingrid, I'm very frustrated by the fact that I need to hear that. And I'm married to a 5 who does not use a lot of that language. So it's been a gift for me to be married to a 5, because he does not offer me a lot of that language. He offers very truthful statements. And so when they are affirming and all of that, I know I don't doubt him at all, because I know what he tells me is absolutely the truth. And he's never going to just say something to me to make me feel better. So it's a gift. And that my mother is the person who's a 2 that I will absolutely pick up the phone and she will just layer on all of the affirmation I need. But I know that my husband will just tell me the truth. And I sometimes that's been hard in 20 years of marriage, but I actually have just come to absolutely value that, because I don't have to wonder. And that's a gift.
Can I ask a question about Jillian's concept of detachment without taking it personally from the standpoint of 6s and 9s? Because I say, what? Like that does not strike as true at all, as far as someone's saying that my plan doesn't work feels extremely personal to me. And that's one of the reasons why I want to withdraw. So then it's very difficult for me to face that person, because like this whole becoming aware of the Enneagram made me realize, no, actually some people want to push against me and they respect me when I push back. Like what? So the idea of a plan being denied, I mean, I have an example of that too. Like somebody said, I mean, I worked so hard, I put all the stuff together and then dismissed it. And then to say, okay, I'm never going to talk to you again, kind of feeling inside. So I just was curious if others feel that way with like a detachment from the thing. So yes, that thing was denied, but I wasn't denied. First, like that, how do you feel about that?
I would
That it's
take
just a
things
project?
personally. I would never be able to go back and say, "Oh, I just detached from the task." Like that person is tainted, and I will never.
I think this, if I can, as a 3. Asher, love you, because you bring up stuff and it always ties in later. I don't even know if you did it on purpose. I think this is a great example of what Asher brought up earlier, and about the feeling center versus emotions. And I said the feeling center is really people. So if you're feeling repressed, you're people repressed, right? So I think that's a great example of this. I'm not even saying I never take things personally. Like I certainly take things. I expect other people to not take things personally, and then I take things personally. So first of all, let's put that on the table, okay? Um, but like we are people repressed, right? We are not concerned in our worst moments, we are not concerned with you, right? We are concerned with what we want to do, right? And so certainly it can be, well, I don't want to do this. I'll still hang out with you, but we're not doing this, right? And of course, that feels connected to other people because other people aren't people repressed, right? There is no separation between what we're doing and who I am, or however we want to say that. But 3, 7, and 8 view those as like different things, or at least we want to be able to view those as different things, maybe is a better way of saying that. So, sorry, first of all. And I think when we talk about 3, 7, and 8 steamrolling people, I imagine that's part of it. Like, we just want you to not take things personally. Well, you wouldn't be steamrolled if you just didn't get steamrolled, right? Well, that's not fair because other people aren't thinking like that, right? And it's not true. Like, is the point of knowing you're feeling repressed is learning that that's not true for everybody. So anyway, I hope
build on
that didn't
that.
come across as like super annoying as I'm looking back at that right now. But
I'd build on that on the positive and the negative in terms of threes. Like sometimes it's a great good for 3, 7s, and 8s to say, we're not sitting here in your tears, sorrows, and self-condemnation. We're gonna move. I really don't care about your feeling. We got other things to do. And that could be a real gift. Like it can be quote unquote steamrolling people at times. But in community, just to speak to threes in particular, it's if you continue to sit here, you're going to fail. And we are connected together and we're not failing together. We're moving. And that can be a real gift. But notice that's the connecting point. It's where the three communal nature of threes and success, of seeing their own personal success tied to those that they have united to. It seems to me a real value for threes, but that causes that kind of behavior at times. But that behavior I don't think is necessarily negative. It can be negative, but it's not necessarily negative. That'd be my quick take.
I'd just responding to what Sue was putting out there. For me, yeah, I'd take it personally. I wouldn't show that, but definitely what would be just loud speaking within me was how my presence doesn't matter. It would, it just this whole thing that I put all this energy into, why bother? Just withdraw. That's where I'd go and have to really work hard on that, to pretend that I was okay and still a team player. Finding a way though to withdraw.
Notice, can I build on that? The idea that your presence, the desire for your presence to matter, produces behavior in 9s on exactly this front. You're going to create spaces where you seek to understand other people. And in so doing, showcasing through that, through your mind, through I understand you, showcasing that their presence matters. 3, 6, and 9s on all these fronts. There's a lot of I'm loving the way I want to be loved that is coloring a lot of our discussion so far. And I think that came out in your statement, Susan. That was good. I would love to pivot to 6s on this front. Kind of say we're saving the best for last. Obviously, 6s. No, when there, what I've heard so far is a lot of energy when it comes to connecting, and the idea of attachment and detachment. But would any of you want to speak to that?
I have a lot of energy, like assuming you meet certain prerequisites, there's like an immediate latch on, which I think you can kind of go to cultish type, like I'm 100% all in. It's very binary. This doesn't really apply to family, so it's other people. And it's been a source of like, I feel crazy that I can literally go from all in to all out and just torch something. The part I'm kind of searching for is like, I'm very all in or all out on the person. And the way you describe success, you're all in or out, all out. There's like this binary happening. But I could be like, if we're working on a thing and it's not going like like it's not looking super successful, assuming I'm not going to get in trouble, I could do a range of, oh, it's like 50% successful. Like I think I could tolerate that. And it sounded like you can tolerate being 50% friends with somebody after some activity kind of soured. I could never do that. It's just interesting to see where you have capacity for this range or ramp up. And if it's trust or something, like it's very all in or all out. So I definitely, your cut and run thing is, mine is a blowtorch it.
I was thinking it would be funny at the end. So like 3s are cut and run, 9s are like dissociate and withdraw or whatever.
Yeah.
3s are like something in torch. Like that's good. That's funny. That's probably not really that true, but that's funny.
Is it just to push into that, Katie? Is that not like if you were to overlap that with stance? Isn't that the stance?
I was just about to bring that up. I'm glad you brought that up, Jeff. I'm hearing stance all over this. 9, like our versions of run. Like Emma, what you said, that was still so
I'm blowing it up.
You're blowing it up, right? The 3s are like, you guys can stay here. I'm leaving. right? I don't care what y'all do. We're leaving. And nines are like, I don't have to leave, but you can't get me to participate. Or however, right? You guys would say that. So I can stay in the room, but you don't get me.
It's a good illustration of the difference between external processing and independent processing there in terms of like the cut and run. What I hear there for the three is actually much more of an independent move
Yeah.
as opposed to, I said it was withdrawal. Maybe it's withdrawal with the stress side, but it's the dissociation that can take place quickly. Whereas for the six, if you're going to blowtorch something, that's an external reaction to whatever the thing is right here, right now, that's in front of you that needs to be addressed because that's how you process. That's how you
Or
understand.
Joey in her book, I think, does 126 throw the baby out with the bathwater. I can't tell you how many times I just want to start over from scratch. And I think torching it achieves that.
Yeah.
Emma, I was just going to confirm that as a member of the same stance. Like, definitely, it's a stance thing. If this isn't working, forget it.
I
Blow
mean,
it
I'll
up.
do it with AI. I'm typing in something and it's already deviating. Nope, start over, new chat. Like, it's not working. I don't know how to recover or repair is very hard. Yeah.
Bang. I assume that six's detaching isn't always with a blowtorch.
Yeah,
Pause.
I agree with that. But I also, for me, it's moving in from uncertainty to certainty. And so thinking through of like where like what uncomfortable emotions or what uncomfortable relational experiences do I have that makes me want to get out of the room is when I am uncertain about how I can earn or provide to be in relationship and connection with the person that's in the room. So I'll use my work as a hospital chaplain to kind of help tease all this out. So like when I go to the emergency room or I go to like a code and someone is dying, like I can navigate those experiences so well. I find connection. I can sit in the really hard grief, the really hard sadness, the really hard whatever you want to call it, and crazy, all kinds of crazy different experiences. And what can help get me through that is the certainty of there's nothing that I can do but be here and be present and provide compassionate care for this person, right? There's not really a fork in the road that I'm trying to have to figure out which way I'm going down. But I could go into a room with someone and they're really navigating some things. You know, they're trying to navigate this hospital stay, they're trying to navigate this hard whatever, and I'm just really uncertain as to what to do because, you know, as a chaplain, I have to do things to justify my existence in the room as an Enneagram 6, and I have to be able to earn my place in the room as an Enneagram 6. So when I get uncertain about that, that's when I want to start to move away and get out of the room. And there's this interesting thing with relationships that I've noticed about myself is that when the earning stops and I can just be in relationship and connection with someone, I have to just sit with the uncertainty and insecurity of all of that before I can get into a really secure relationship. And those are my deepest, most profound, like those are the people it's like, you know, you need to hide a body, call me and I'll pick up the shovel on the way, you know. And so I think for me, that's where it's at. And so the idea of when there has been cut off, as Bowen's family system would put it, like just this like not necessarily detachment, but cut off. Blow a torch it up, blow it up, whatever. I've heard some folks use the language of Enneagram 6 as putting someone outside of their circle. When that happens, it's because I need to be in control of the uncertainty that is in that relationship dynamic.
There it is.
And so that's for me what that cut and run might look like. And where that happens. And probably as a 6 does a lot of work to avoid the rejection of my plan doesn't work, because we're very collaborative. And so for me, I don't have a lot of plans rejected because I went and talked to a whole bunch of people and got their input on it first. So there, and even if there is feedback coming in, like I actually want that as a 6. Like I want the rejection, or I want the feedback. I want that additional information, because that leads just to certainty, right? And so for me, the really big relational growth, in even just the growth in my work and all of that, is to make myself at home in uncertainty.
Yeah.
And letting go of the earning that is really connected to that as a 6. And I think a part of that invitation, and this is where I know y'all have talked about some story work and stuff on the podcast and stuff. I think it's when those moments do come up, getting really curious about where that's connecting with my story and what's like really going on here, because I think curiosity, 6s ask a lot of questions in seeking security, and that is very different from curiosity, is what I would say.
What can you speak more about that? What's the difference?
Yeah, so curiosity is more of an openness and vulnerability to it, right? Like a 6 asking a bunch of questions to seek security or to expect an end result. Like I'm already processing, this is what I think this needs to be. So I'm doing the check-ins and the testing and all of that kind of stuff with folks. Curiosity is more about just asking an honest, open-ended question without having any idea what you're going to get on the other side of it, right? And so I think that's a really important thing with 6s and stuff like that, to make yourselves at home, to make ourselves at home in uncertainty and explore all of that with curiosity.
What does it look like? So, Asher, you talked about putting people on the outside of the circle, right? Or however we say that. So this is for both of you, but what does that look like? Like in real life, you've decided this person can't be in the inner circle or whatever. What do you do? What does that look like to people?
Communication is obligatory only.
Hmm.
And so like
Yeah.
you see a lot of literature on 6s as being like very sociable, being very chatty, that kind of a thing. When my communication, relational communication, is limited to the pragmatic and the I only need to talk to you to get this box checked or whatever, like I think that's one way that cutoff can look like, if you're like in a work setting and like,
Sure.
or a setting where you're like, you have to interact with someone,
And it's quick. Like yesterday we were cool, today we're not.
It can be. I think that depends on the 6's awareness to the chaining that they've been doing or not doing before
Sure.
cutting someone off, and kind of going into that.
Can I throw out what my assumption would be? It goes along what Emma was saying. You got prerequisites, and they're about whether or not this person's trustworthy. You can deal with the person in a work environment. That person's not trustworthy though, and that's going to be a very black and white category for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it totally can be, for sure. Yes, I think it can be. Then the reason why I'm not saying a definitive, Jeff, is because I think there is something about growth and like window of tolerance and things like that that comes into how that black and white starts to get shades of gray to it. and like something Jillian talked about earlier is, as I've been doing my own work and as I've been trying to get into healthier places, like seeing the giftedness of other types, so like the husband being a 5 and like not giving you what you want, but giving you what you need. And I think that's where it can be like it starts to get more gray than just the black and white thing, which is some of the things I've been walking through with a couple of relationships with right now, and it's hard and it's tricky because that's not uncertainty, right? I'm like, well, I don't really know what to do with this person. I would usually just say like, all right, you're out, but I got to engage in conflict and repair instead, and I got to like start using all these new relational tools that I'm usually not using. And that can be hard.
Question for the 6s. The 9s talked about like kind of hurtful emotions when it comes to relationships. What I heard in the 9s was the dismissal. It was something that pushed the button for 3s. Jillian brought up not being validated or seeking the validation, just having that be the place of hurt. If you were to talk about like in relationship, you're trying to connect, you're creating these spheres where you and others feel that sense of security. What does relational hurt look like in terms of somebody's reaction to the gift that you're offering?
I don't know. The first one coming to mind is doubt. Expect of others. Like I have higher I expect others not to do something that I would do, if that makes sense. Like I'm gonna doubt you, but you better not doubt me. I mean, there's hypocrisy, I think, riddled all over a 6 if you're not really aware. I don't know.
Your feeling is that that person doesn't trust you, and that's where the hurt lies.
Like I think if somebody else was doubting me, there's something like that is something that I don't know that I could be super justified in pushing back, because I am gonna do the like go after. I tend to do that most of the time. If it's not like, if it's an authority figure, I won't. But for other people that I can be more aggressive with, I think if they took a step back and were giving me like thought, was expressing doubt in me, that would also make me step back instead of like confronting them even more. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It's like what I need to actually pause, like something is really wrong here, rather than being justified that I could blowtorch or be justified in my detachment. I think doubt would kind of be more hurtful, if that makes sense.
Does anything you want to say there, Asher?
Yeah, I think, and some of this may just be my own personal story and things. I haven't really thought about it in a 6 context, so maybe we can brainstorm that a bit. I think I have a sensitivity to usury and feeling used, which can come into play in relationships where it's an over-functioning, under-functioning relationship and there's not mutuality. And so for me, it's when someone's continually not showing up and not following through. That can be where emotional hurt and relational hurt can start to come into play. It's a feeling of trust, and it's a feeling of broken trust and ruptured trust and wounded trust. And I think those are some of the things, like in those moments where I feel like, well, this person just used me. And a lot of that is because of being a 6 and having the desire of being in relationship and being in community and being a part of that belonging piece, and using tools of earning to get that. I think what happens is I can mistake my earning for relationship. and like the relational exchange as being in relationship. Well, I'll do this and I'll take care of this. And then, so it feels like a little two-ish, but I think there's some different pieces with that. There's kind of more of a betrayal of, well, I thought we were doing this together. And I think there's a togetherness piece that's a part of it for the 6. And so, maybe that happens first and I process it as feeling used or feeling like I'm over functioning in this relationship. This person is totally under functioning in this relationship. And then how do I fix that? Because it's scary.
Do you get to a place of resentment there? Because in the past, when I feel like I keep the score and I've already reached resentment, and then I'm about ready to, detach. That one is hard to overcome sometimes because there's no boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes, I definitely think resentment can come into play in that. And that's why I think the move is to detach and it is to blowtorch it, is because that's a whole lot easier place of security and safety, is if the thing just doesn't exist anymore, then I don't have to do the hard work of engaging in relationship, the actual work of engaging into relationship with someone, because my earning broke and didn't work and ultimately didn't give me what I wanted. And so I think that for me is where, like, when resentment comes in and all of those things lead to that spot, I now have a fork in the road and I can either choose to blow this up, which sometimes is a healthy boundary, right? Like, I know Jeff kind of talked about that earlier. Like, there's a difference between boundaries and cutoff. And I think boundaries can be very helpful in all of that. I do think relationally it is important. I am not a fan of establishing boundaries without a conversation, because not doing that is just cut off, in my opinion, and my view.
I have a question for y'all, and this goes for all 3 6s and 9s. My assumption coming into this is that detachment is about the fact that the person that you might be in a relationship with but are detaching from is not willing, able to help manufacture the space that you're seeking to create or contribute to that space. This person is not only not successful, there's intentionally seeking to fail and sabotaging the thing that I'm seeking to manufacture here, or specifically with the 6s, like, this person is not trustworthy because they are a source of confusion. They're making things unsafe for the rest of us. And therefore detachment ends up being of that sort. Or for the 9, people obviously can be banging gongs, sources of chaos in your world. My assumption is that, like, primarily detachment looks, I suppose I'm thinking of work environments this entire time as opposed to romantic relationships. Anything worth plussing there?
I mean, back to every time I kept hearing Asher say earn, to me,
Yeah.
if I really break it down, it's because I'm not willing to say what I actually want. I'll dance around it and not be clear. So I'm going to have expectations. And then I'll keep noticing the pattern of the other person doing something that's like triggering me, making me like I'll have a amount of emotional discomfort. And I might not, like, I could be doing more, right? I could be saying what I'm actually expecting. Instead, I don't make it all, I'm not following all the way through on my half of the bargain. And then I detach. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, that felt much more. So I should maybe frame detachment. It's not always about the other person. Sometimes it's about your own self and self understanding that where the detachment comes in.
Well, so what I was going to say is that framing it to be about the other person also feels very reactive stance to me, right? That feels like a very 1, 2, 6 way of looking at it, because everything is about people, right? And like the 3s were like, the one caveat I will say, I like that you brought up work, and like, I think work is a little different because at work, like, what we do is who we are, sort of, right? But I'm thinking of like when I've done this in like my personal life, it's always from like places or things. It's not, and I'd say that at work too, actually. Like I'm thinking of like, yeah, anyway. So that's what I would say. The people focus of it feels very reactive stance to me. I hear the stance in that as well. It might be about people, but it doesn't feel like it's about people to me when I do it. You know what I mean? And it is inherently, it's about me, right? Like
Well,
you said, it's about.
if you were to frame the question in terms of relationships, is it not going to be about people? Like, if you're part of the attachment triad at some levels, your relationships are going to, how does
I
that apply
guess
to them?
I
I,
think I view relationships as a thing we're building. And now I'm detaching from the thing we're building. And you can go live your life, that's great. I'm thinking of like friends I have a hard time, like people I thought were going to be my friend and then I didn't want to be their friend. Like, and again, I'm not saying this is the right way to look at it. I'm saying this is the three way of looking at it,
Of
right?
course.
Um, I'm not really disconnecting from that person. I'm disconnecting from our friendship, which feels like a thing, you know? And that person can go live their lovely life, and I wish the best for them. I just don't want to build the thing anymore.
I was just going to say that, Asher, the thing that you said that really strikes a chord with me as a member of the same stance is how you said you feel like if you're earning whatever, doing the work to earn this relationship, it feels like that's relationship. Like it's in truth, it's not the same thing, but to me, that what you said resonates with me. Like I I tend to think it's the same thing, uh, and I think probably someone who's not in our stance would be able to easily distinguish between those two things. So I'm not sure it's as much about a 6 as it is about being a reactive in the reactive stance.
That's a good point, Andrew.
Julian?
Julian.
So many years ago, one of my very best friends is a 1. And we were in the same church community, and my family was exploring the option of going to a different church community. And in my mind, this had absolutely nothing to do with our friendship whatsoever. It did not occur to me, back to the language in the chat earlier, it did not even occur to me that this had anything to do with a friendship. And when I say that it opened my eyes so much about the difference between stances, because she was so deeply hurt we did not end up leaving, then we ended up moving, but that turmoil in that relationship that I was 100% blind to. I had no idea that because I was still going to see her. We lived close to each other. So it didn't even enter my brain that there was anything relational about that decision. It was about a thing, exactly what Katie's saying. It was about a thing. And to answer the question currently in the chat, what does repair look like? I mean, I truly try to always leave things in such a way that in my mind, there is always positive possibility in every relationship in the future to me as a 3. I've had very difficult relationship issues in my life with people in my family very close to me. And as it stands at this minute, all of those are in healthy, good places. And probably I've fought more for some of those to be in a good place because, again, it just feels like my life is in order when my relationships are in order. But again, nobody is dead to me ever. And so, but I now wonder if the other person feels like I think they're dead to me because they're not. Any of these people that I end up having, even like to your point, Katie, if you say a friendship's kind of not working, it's still not like I'm going to have a breakup with you. I, in my mind, just assume we're in different places in our life right now. We have different priorities. And so maybe we're just not hanging out like we once were. But it doesn't mean that whatever differences we have, political, religious, any of that, like that there's not a possibility for that relationship to be positive in the future. And so I don't again, I could be perceiving this totally incorrectly as the 3. Maybe there are people in my life that think that I think they're dead to me, but they're not. It's just that I've 3'd myself around my life and haven't. I just checked in on a friend before this call that I haven't talked to in several months, and I hope she doesn't think that, So I see the stance very clearly in a lot of this because I think it just doesn't occur to us as the people in the aggressive independent stance for that to be the thing that we're detaching from.
That is really well said. Nature of relationships is worth talking about here. I've never thought about this in terms of relationships. How do you characterize and think about the nature of the relationships that you jump into? I never think of relationships as an object. Relationship is very amalgamational for me. It's very overlapping for me. You are in my life would be language that I'm real comfortable with relationships. So that's helpful because that brings in a whole different dynamic in terms of how types see their connections with each other. Is what's the nature of relationship in your entire purview. Never thought about that as well. Good stuff, both of you guys. On that front, the other little topic that I think is real interesting on these fronts is just where relational hurt happens, and it may be on exactly these fronts. My intuition, I would love for 3, 6s, and 9s to speak about this. My intuition is that each of us come to the table offering something of value to the world and to the people that we love, and it needs to be received. So for the 3, 6, 9 who are creating the space or offering what they have, there will be that radar for has somebody received what I've brought to the world. I feel like I saw that a lot with the 9 language up front and some with the 6s. I'd be real curious how the 3s would think about this, like what you're bringing to the world. But when it's not received by the folks you are offering it to, what does that feel like? What does that look like? My language for that would be hurt. But again, I'm kind of questioning everything now based on the on the last little statement. So, any thoughts on what feels to me like kind of rejection of what your gift is?
Can I ask a question? Like,
Yeah.
just your terminology of saying, assuming you are bringing, like, assuming you're knowledgeable about bringing what you are offering to the table feels like a foreign language to me. So,
Yeah.
assuming that I am going to be heard and appreciated for what I'm bringing to the table seems like, what? And it's not, yeah. So it's just, it's like, is there another way to ask that question?
Can I set it up in a different way that might hit for you? So the one thing I would, Jeff, the one thing I would add to what you're saying is you keep asking about what do we bring and what do we want people to connect with, and it's all this external. We're giving gifts, right? But the whole point of 3, 6, and 9 is that it's both ways, right? So sure, I'm bringing a gift, but I also want to experience it. So the one thing I was going to bring up with 3s, we talked about 3s and validation from other people, and that is certainly important. But if we leave it there, that doesn't feel like the whole story. I have cut and run from things that nobody ever said anything about. I did that with my college major about 7 times. I did that with, right? And that had nothing, like other people weren't like validating or invalidating that. It was like all of a sudden I decided that it wasn't going to be successful and I wouldn't be successful in it. And so I left, right? So they're also equally as important as the external giving the gift is what do I want to be receiving from my environment, right? And I wonder for 9s, maybe that's an easier question. What do I want to receive? Also for 9s, I always think the easier question is what do I not want to receive? Because 9s often really know what they don't want. It's harder to know what they do want. Anyway, as the 3, I mean, I would say success. Jillian, I love that you were like, it's everywhere. Like it's everything is either a success or failure, right? All of it. Um, so I would say that, but it's sure I'm giving success, but like I don't think of it as like me giving it to other people, so then I get it. I just exist in this space of wanting everyone and me to be successful. Jace exists in this space of wanting to be calm, and so other people are calm around him, but he also gets the calm, right? What'd you say?
Yeah.
I think that
So I haven't spoken much. I'm like, I think I just realized that I'm a self-preservation 9. So I'm just like ruminating on all of it right now. But how I'll try to keep this brief. How I see my relationships is I don't overstep often and probably to a fault. So like if I'm walking into a new room, sometimes even in the way of formalities, I'll let my non-engagement get in the way because I don't want to catch someone in a bad mood and then all of a sudden there's conflict. Um, so that's how I see self-preservation. What I want is like I'm already going to bring calmness to a situation most of the time. So yeah, exactly. I want them to give me calmness back. And if there's a chance they won't, I'm just not going to engage at all. I'm
Yeah.
just going to already take the back seat. I might not say good morning when I walk into the office if my boss has already sent a couple emails that aren't good.
Yeah, the space
Yeah,
is important.
yeah. So
Anyway.
if I can do anything to help create that calm space, then I will, which is not saying anything or only talking to the people that are in a good mood.
Sure.
I would love to push into that slightly. I do get the idea that we approach relationships saying, what do I need? And maybe even 90% of our energy is just, is this person serving my needs? And maybe that is how we walk through the world. For the nines have talked about being dismissed. Apparently you brought something that got dismissed, yeah? What got dismissed?
I can talk about a couple examples. My boss, he's quite dismissive. He has there are many examples where he has been very appreciative of the things that I brought to the table, but I'm so used to seeing him dismiss people that I actually no longer take it personally. Like I'm actually not afraid to try and just say things that come from like maybe a lack of experience or something. But like the the joy that I get when what I say does hit, that's worth it for me. So I would say that's like, I don't know if that's like a growth path that I've gone on, but like I'm okay with being dismissed now. I'm more okay with it now.
Is it your ideas are being dismissed or accepted though? What is being
Yeah, they're my ideas. They're like what I bring to like
what
a
you think
meeting
should happen?
conversation. Yeah, my direction, how I would phrase something in a meeting, something like that. Because in my job, we have a lot of strategy. It's all technical sales.
So, Jace, are
So
you just
wait, you've
comfortable
learned,
with being invisible?
Um, I am quite comfortable with that. Yeah.
So,
If
like, to me, that would just be automatic. Like,
Yeah, I skate by the through the day. I could skate by through most work days without being acknowledged and just sitting there working with my head down. I love acknowledgement, but a lot of my work is independent, to be fair. So that lends itself to that as
I,
well.
I suppose I'd want to push slightly in terms of like there's how we kind of are in the world and feeling good about ourselves. There's also, we have relationships that matter to us. And perhaps I would love to elevate that element of yourself and say, think about the relationships in your past, in your present that really matter to you and what it is that you bring to the table. And when it doesn't hit, you feel a relational hurt. I assume all the types have something of that experience. Like, and I would want to just bring it, like, I could easily talk about this is what I brought to my relationship with my dad. This is where it didn't get received. And I know exactly what the hurt feels like there. I assume that we have that. So I'll bring up parents just because I think that might be the most clear place. But is there, for the nines, threes, and sixes, can you bring language to that in terms of what, like, here's what I've brought to you. You know what I mean there?
When I
The
was a
space.
kid, if I brought up
No,
a concern and it wasn't addressed, that's dismissal for me. So there's another dismiss.
I think I bring a space to be your best self, and I'm going to be my best self, and you can also be your best self. And if either one of us fails at that, then, like that's. And very importantly, it's like the three version of of what I think your best, right? It's not like I'm not saying your best self, like your most healed self. It's like the three version of your best self, right? But
For me, it's the truth, and it's the truth in depth. Like I just kind of don't have energy for relationships that are superficial, and I don't know how much of this is Enneagram or how much of it's just me being older now or how much of it's self-pres or introversion. I don't know. But the hurt I've experienced in relationships has had to do with lying. And so I want the truth, and I feel like I'm the same person to everybody that I meet, which is odd as a 3, but I do. I mean, I would tell any of you everything about myself without hesitation. And I kind of expect the same thing. And so when there's a deliberate withholding of it, it's not so much that I don't want to have that relationship, it just feels pointless. Like, is it a relationship if we're not bringing our whole self to it? And what's the point of that? So I don't have a very big interest in having superficial relationships. Suzanne really tried to convince me and other people that small talk is important. I really hate it. I'm really good at it and I really hate it. So part of growing as a 3 is me letting go of some of that stuff that I used to just do to be in a space. And I just don't do small talk now. I just sit there and I act like my 5 husband, and people think something's wrong with me. And it's interesting. But I don't know. I just have a very low capacity now for shallow relationships. And I do think it's directly correlated to several things that went very badly in several very important relationships that had to do with lying, not being honest.
For me, I grew up in a family where not feeling seen, trying to be authentic, trying to put out something that matters, and having that not seen. And a lot of what you just said, Jillian, really fits with me too. So being a 9, I really can easily sense where other people are coming from and engage them on that level. But I don't have a lot of energy or interest in pursuing that if I can't get past that, and or if there's some kind of fear in that. The bad part about that is that it's created this withdrawal detachment in my personality that has been really challenged in the last few, though I was going to say the last few years. I had a wonderful last working space that did a lot of healing, but in my Enneagram group friends, I've really been challenged to put myself out more, to speak up, to take that risk. And I've been doing that. And even with a group of old friends that I moved up here, nobody really made an effort. I'm only 45 minutes away. And so I'm going, oh, well, I'm busy here. They didn't really care that much. Now I'm making sure I go back once a week and have a breakfast meeting with these people. And so much of this stuff that's challenging my 9 behavior, I'm seeing as, having responses in my young years that made me view the world a certain way. Well, the 9 way, but just challenging that and getting a different response is, I'm finding, just a really big growth challenge right now. And the more I do it, the better I feel inside. And I'm not trying to do it so much. I think something must have shifted inside. It's like afterwards I'm going, oh my God, I was different there. I was, speaking my truth without trying to couch it in safe enough terms that it would be non-threatening to the other person. So, yeah.
That's well said. What I'm hearing from the nines is the gift is much more intellectual. Here's what I'm thinking, and whether there's space to bring the thoughts to the table in a way that have efficacy and body and can be received. When they're not received, I totally get it that you can say, oh well, it's fine, that's all fine, but you're hurt, you know. Like that's also what I'm hearing is like that move, which is predictable, obviously, for nines to move into that space of perhaps diminishing themselves slightly, pushing for a little bit of positive spin, saying this didn't matter as much. I'm trying. Unfortunately, I'm really trying to rip open a Band-Aid here to get some vocabulary around it, because I recognize this will be a difficult spot to go for some of us. So, but I thought you said it very well. So, we hit the end. You guys are the best. Any last anything worth saying, Katie, before we wrap this sucker?
I think, do you have, as always, thank you all for being here. I do like talking about myself, but I also like hearing from everybody else. Just kidding. Thank you all for being here. I don't know how any of the rest of you feel. Last time and this time have been my favorites. I don't know if it's just because it's what we're talking about, but I think it's really, really interesting, and everybody is, I think, getting comfortable with each other and like opening stuff up and doing all the stuff. So as always, thank you for being here. And if this is one of your first, we're very glad to have you as well. We like adding people. So
agreed. Excellent. You guys are the best. I hope you have a great Saturday. And if you can make it next month, we'd love to have you. So much love.
Bye, everybody.